Welcome back to Brave Birds News, one of the best places for sports. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel. Why like and subscribe? Well, first of all, it's free. But beyond that, it kind of helps the algorithm make a decision as to whether they should share this video with other people. And I have this channel here to entertain and inform. So it has been quite, I would say, a month when it comes to sports betting. And it's very interesting because I put it into a couple of categories when it comes to sports betting and gambling and all those things. So obviously, I used to be a DFS channel. Now I still have those videos. So a big part of my channel is DFS, and I'll probably put some DFS videos out there occasionally. So DFS is all obviously daily fantasy sports, which is a spinoff of fantasy sports, and we know that. Before DraftKings and a lot of the sports, FanDuel, and there's so many companies now that came along. We all played fantasy football, fantasy basketball, fantasy baseball, whatever. And whether it was somebody who was a really, really big organized nerd doing all of the calculations, or whether it was through Yahoo, ESPN, or whatever, a lot of times we did put a little bit of money out there, a few dollars. We'd have a pot and a person would collect it. And, you had all of those kind of things. So, before we got all organized, probably about 10 years ago, people played fantasy sports. And then you had DFS, which was just, you know what? You don't have to wait, 10, 20, 30 weeks to actually win your league. You can win every day, multiple times a day. Now, we know most of the time you can lose every day, multiple times a day, but that is a subject for another day. But what we've had more is, and which has been causing a lot of interesting thing, is we actually had the sports betting where it's not you're not a general manager, making a basketball team or a baseball team. You have a lot of crazy props, and you have parlays, and from there, that's where things get interesting because as you have some of these exotic props and parlays, if you have bad actors involved, that are inside of the sport, this is where things can get real tricky. We know that probably in our lifetimes, and I say that loosely because it was a long time ago, but I am in my 40s. We know when we think of sports betting and things going horribly wrong, we think of Pete Rose. We know Pete Rose was the all-time hits leader, over 4,000 hits. We know that he was one of the best players of all time. He was a player manager, which seems insane in now, in today's sports landscape. But we also know that, excuse me, as a manager and as a player, he bet on his Cincinnati Reds, and he was banned from baseball, banned from the Hall of Fame. And 7 years after his death, I think a month or so ago, they finally are going to allow him to get into the Hall of Fame. Whether that happens or not is to be determined. But we've had two, issues that just happened this week. We have Ortiz for the Cleveland Guardians, and then we have Malik Beasley from the Detroit Pistons. And we know once again for some of these parlays, just imagine, a lot of us are always, jumping around a little bit. A lot of us who watch boxing or UFC, there are a lot of crazy props with that. And if you have a judge who is crooked or in on it, you could have some issues. We know we've had gambling, we'll say, issues in the NBA with some of the referees. So, but having the players involved in this, I mean, we had Ridley for the Falcons, but it's really scary when you think about how much money is out there. And if you it doesn't take a lot for some of these crazy props to have somebody who has somehow found a way to get around the system, because it's very impressive all of the systems that they have set up to try to make sure that professional players don't get involved in sports betting, DFS, all those kind of things. But you have an exotic prop where it's like, I mean, it gets crazy. Will player John Doe missed 4 free throws? I mean, I'm sure a prop like that is out there. And if that player misses 4 free throws, and after they miss their fourth free throw, they pretend that they're injured and sit down the rest of the game, then all of a sudden, you have a big win or loss for someone. So it's getting very dangerous and interesting. So I want to hear, what are your thoughts? How do you feel like this is going to impact, DFS and sports betting? I mean, there's a lot of money and a lot of sponsorship involved, so I don't know if it's going to collapse. But if you have any thoughts, just leave a comment, and I'll talk to you next time.